It's quite a weird old thing. It's called the Hurdy Gurdy in this country, which is a sort of a misnomer really, because it's similar to the barrel organ in as much as they both had a handle. But the similarity stops there because the barrel organ was purely mechanical, but the Gurdy is really like a fat fiddle. And in France it was called the vielle à la roue, which means a fiddle with a wheel. And that's basically what it is. Instead of having a bow, it's got this wheel here, and the strings sit on it so that when you turn the handle they're bowed from the underneath. So that gives you the sound. And it's got drone strings on the side, so you can take the drones on and off the wheel by hooking them back here from the bridges and change the sound of it. And in here, this is like the left hand of the fiddle, they're like little wooden fingers. So and they fall back by gravity, so you have to have it tilted away from you. Then this hand does the bowing. And the interesting thing is this little hinged bridge here that taps on the soundboard, so that gives you a buzzing, so you can get a rhythm when you're playing it. Nobody quite knows where it came from, somewhere in Central Europe. And it had all different names all over Europe. In France, the vielle à la roue. In this country it's often called, what the hell's that? You know, it's one of its names. But it's evolved in different shapes and sizes, and the earliest ones were found in the carvings of the old medieval churches in Spain. Some of the figures were playing gurdies. And I think before they developed the organ, there were great big gurdies, and one man would turn the handle and the other play the keys. And then it became a folk instrument, especially in France, which is where I first came across it. And I suppose the local carpenters in the shops, you know, and the local little carpenters in the villages would make them. And they were used for dances outside, really. It also had a golden age. Marie Antoinette in France played it, and it was commissioned for classical music. Vivaldi composed for it, and Haydn. And some of the Four Seasons was written for Gurdy. And in this country now there is... in fact, this was made by a fellow called Chris Eaton, because when I first tried to get into the Gurdy, it was in the 70s, through going to France. And I managed to get a French Gurdy with great difficulty. And then it had a revival there, because it never died out. After the French Revolution, they actually chopped the heads off the Gurdies as well, because it was in disrepute, and they used the heads as paperweights, which is quite sad, because I mean they were made by some of the best luthiers in Paris, so there aren't many old Gurdies left. There's some in museums. Well, I was fascinated with it when I first heard it in France. I was playing with a dulcimer player in the 70s, and we were invited out there. And I think because I played the drums originally. And this is something that developed on the Gurdy in its history, is that there's a little bridge here that's hinged, so that it's tension, one of the drones is tension behind it, so that when you give the handle a whack, you can actually get a rhythm with it. So yes, from the drum point of view, I really was interested in playing a rhythm and playing it, combines two things together really. And it's what makes the instrument very interesting, because you can play it as simply as you like or as complicated. You know, there's some virtuoso players now and it's like drums, because it's like having your feet and your hands completely independent. So this hand should be independent of this, so you can put syncopated rhythms in and do something different with that hand, which is what's the challenge of it, really. But I suppose it was the sound of it that drew me to it as well, and because I was interested in the time in all the old medieval and minstrel and troubadour music of the 12th century in France, and some of the more sort of mystical poetry, which led me into the Celtic connection, living down here in Cornwall and mixing with a lot of the Irish musicians as well, and Breton, and being drawn into the old nature poets which goes back 1,000 years, probably the same history as the Gurdy. And some of that poetry has been handed down, and I think they had a great love of nature and of solitude, and it's those countries that I'm drawn to. Those sort of themes arise through the centuries, I think, in the medieval troubadour music, and then more latterly in the poetry of W.B. Yeats and Walter de la Mare and people like that. And if I'm stuck for lyrics, I often draw on those old poems and try and set them to music. And the story of Emain, in fact, goes back, I think, to the 8th century, 7th or 8th century, although the original story is pre-Christian. And the lovely thing about some of those tales is the symbolism in them. They can mean whatever they mean to different people. You know, there's so many meanings, and once you get drawn into that, it takes you on a journey. So that's really where the Gurdys draw me in many different directions. And also working with Eric as well, who's Breton, and that's led me into some of the more Eastern rhythms and Galician and Eastern European music. Well, we met, I think it was in 1980, we were part of a package tour in Germany. Celtic music was very popular then, it still is there. And there was a Welsh band, a Breton band that Eric was in, and an Irish duo playing Irish Uilleann pipes and harp, and myself. So it stems from then really, and we've toured on and off over the years. And also I've worked with Jez Lowe, the singer from the Northeast, who's a great songwriter and an old friend. We worked a lot in the 80s. He's from the northeast of England, which again has got a real Celtic connection. And I think the Gurdy, because you can take the drones on or off, so you can make it almost sound like a bit like the Northumbrian pipes. Don't want to alienate 90% of the Northumbrian pipe playing community in this country by saying that, but you can, so that's why it fitted with a lot of his songs, because you can get very pipey little sound with it, and almost sliding the notes. So it's really quite a versatile thing. So I've used it for songs, but more with Eric. I think that he's helped me get interested in the more Eastern European, more the dance music.